So proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your transaction is unique in its own way. My experience allows me to bring you trusted care and a really great outcome. My NP Dodge family shares the same client focus.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends, surprise parties, camps, birthdays. The same way you plan for the important moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, "Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket," and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
We're glad to be with you here on another Hoops post-game show on 93.7 The Ticket, and we can celebrate another victory for Nebraska tonight. A very game opponent tonight. Stony Brook pushed Nebraska well into the second half, but eventually the Huskers pull away with an 84-63 victory to improve to 4-0 on the season, 4-0 at home, and still undefeated as we kind of inch closer to the Creighton game without overlooking Oregon State, I suppose, because a lot of people want Nebraska undefeated for the Creighton game, but we will have to see. Great night tonight. We start with another leader scoring off the bench, a different leading scorer for the fourth straight game. This time it was Juwan Gary making his season debut. Very efficient, 19 points on 8 of 11 shooting, 7 rebounds, and really started to get it going in the second half, which helped pull away from Stony Brook. He was very key in getting a few buckets when they started to make that run. Also, contributions in the double figures tonight, double digits from Bryce Williams, who had 17. Keisei Tamanaga was 16, and 14 from Rink Moss, who had also added 8 rebounds and 5 assists for your Huskers. Other guys in the scoring column, Jamarcus Lawrence with 8 points and 5 rebounds, 4 assists himself. 4 points off the bench from Boogie Coleman, and 2 points off the bench each from Sam Hoiberg, CJ Wilcher, and Matar Jobe. Nebraska once again gets the 84-63 victory over Stony Brook. I'm Jake Bakoven in the studio with Harrison Arns. Harrison, 21-point victory, but it wasn't so easy all night long.
Yeah, definitely in that second half, you started to feel a little bit better. Gary, definitely, I'm sure he was feeling pretty good too. He started coming up really big, because in that second half is kind of where it felt like Juwan Gary was the guy to kind of make that push Nebraska over the edge. Impressed by him. And then obviously another one of those games where I think you're just hoping for that offense to stay consistent. It looked a little better in the second half. They threw a zone at him towards the end there. led to a couple more turnovers. They got to clean that up a little bit, just right off the bat. 14 turnovers is just too much. The free throw numbers weren't great, but they still found a way to win. And you're getting good contribution from guys off the bench. And this is kind of going to, I think, be the storyline for a lot of this early season. Who's going to be, sacrificing minutes here down the stretch? Because they're going to be in rotation. There's going to be games where they're still going to have opportunities. But we talked about it. No Ramel Lloyd Jr. either out there. He's another guard that's going to be fighting for minutes. So we're seeing it already a little bit on this selection with the matchups, how they're going to try to play it out. But you definitely feel pretty good about some of the key guys that we brought in. Josiah Alec, I know he had 0 points on the night, 0 for 5, 0 for 2. Don't really expect that to be a consistent problem. I don't think he's going to be a leading scorer by any means, but when he's out there, he's more of that defense rebounder, putbacks. He did finish with 7 rebounds and assists as well, so I'm not going to worry about him too much. But yeah, you know what you got, I think, in Rink Mass. We'll see what it looks like when he plays some of those Big Ten fives. I think that's going to be the real challenge from him. But so far, he's been one of those pieces that night in, night out, he's going to get you rebounds. He's going to get you points. He's going to be able to stretch the floor for you. Shot 50% from 3 again tonight, 2 for 4 on the 3-point line. And that's just going to help everyone out. Casey Tamanaga, a little bit of a different story, going 2 for 6 from the 3-point line. Not bad, but 7 for 11. And that is something we saw last year. When the 3-point shot isn't falling for Casey Tamanaga, he is still an offensive weapon. It's really impressive with me the way he's able to kind of cut people up inside and just really use, I'll say this, when you're that small, you got to be crafty when you're dealing with the trees. And over again, he's been able to do that again. 7 for 11, 16 points on the night. Just impressed by him. And then Williams, nice to really see him 2 for 3 from the 3-point line, 17 points. And that is one thing, they shot 30% from 3, but you're seeing it that it can really just be anyone just taking off. It was kind of Gary towards the end there. Casey Tamanaga, you always know he's going to have it. Guys like Sam Hoiberg, we've seen it before, but it really just feels like a lot of the shooting is going to be a new guy every night with a hot hand. Obviously, you got your guy in Casey, but for the most part, those second, third players that are going to be that next scoring option, it looks like it's just kind of a toss-up right now on who's going to have the hot hand.
Yeah, and I like kind of where Rink Moss is at. He seems to shoot about 4 a ball game. And, sometimes he'll hit 1, sometimes he'll hit 2, maybe none. But he's at least that threat out there. And you can really see, I don't know, maybe tonight was just kind of the matchup, but he really got going on as far as getting the ball at the top of the key or near the perimeter and having a guy run off. I mean, he hit Tamanaga twice on cuts. He hit CJ Wilcher on a cut. And again, maybe Stony Brook's not the best defensive team that they'll see all year long. But as Strick was saying, congratulations once again, Eric Strickland, another great performance on BTN Plus as the color analyst. But as he was saying, he was basically happy that CJ Wilcher finally made the cut and got it going because he was calling out all game. He's like, he sees Tamanaga doing it, and Tamanaga obviously draws a lot of that attention and is able to get that done. He says, with all the weapons that they have, cutting to the basket is going to be important. So I think when you see Rink Moss and kind of start to develop that chemistry, not just with Tamanaga, which is again important to kind of get that Walker Tamanaga combination they had last year, but to be able to kind of visualize that all together, he might be one of your leading assist men from night to night, just from being able to get those. So, I mean, you expect a few threes from him, a few assists from him, and he did lead Nebraska tonight with 5 assists and pretty close to the rebound lead. He had 8. Williams had 9. But he's going to be very central in key moving forward. And as I've said, I guess he ends up Rink Moss as your 4th leading scorer. And that's fine because some nights his 14 to 20 points that he's going to get that you hope is pretty consistent. I just think that he's just, to me, he's just the model of consistency for this team to kind of build around. And then, as you said, kind of all around the other way, you kind of who's hot, who's kind of having their night that night. But Rink Moss, I think, is going to be a consistent. If it's not leading scorer, 3rd leading scorer, I mean, right up there in assists, rebounds, and points as we watch his game develop and watch his chemistry, more importantly, develop with this Husker basketball team.
Yeah, and he's been, obviously that consistent guy. And it was cool for me to get to talk to, Sam Hoiberg, Jeff Grace III. They have Walk On Weekly every Tuesday. And hearing those guys talk about Rink Mass before the offseason, again, not really knowing what his game was. And they mentioned that, like his playmaking skills, he sees things ahead of time. If there's one guy on the, if you had to guess at this point, not that I'm going to predict it, but to get a triple double every night, he's giving you rebounds. He's going to give you assists. He'll get, turnovers. He seems pretty good handle on that. Doesn't cough it up much. He has good hands when they do feed it to him. I mean, we've seen that here in Nebraska. There's been, players before where for whatever reason on the post entry, they've had, just unnecessary. Definitely using him seems like a focal point. You've seen him, on top of the key, a little bit like Derek Walker. You're not going to get that bully down the lane, but at least set it up. And he's got a good enough shot to where, you got to pull up on him if he's at that mid range. Obviously, it's a 3-point line. You've seen it already, but they're going to have to respect his shooting. That's the one thing that he kind of has over Derek Walker. He's not going to have that bully, that physical size, but guys are going to have to come out. They can't just sit back like they used to with Derek Walker and wait for him to, wait for Walker to come to them. Rink Bass is going to have the ability to pull guys out, and he's shown that with the assist numbers, being able to kind of cut it up left and right, being able to dish his guys the ball. And I definitely think he's going to be a corner piece, and which is good, right? Because I think heading into the season, at least for me, it was, what does that depth at that front court look like? And to have Mass playing the way he is, you hope he stays healthy, because it's, I tell you, like, already just kind of looking at it, it'd be a different team without him on the court, 100%.
Well, when we talk about that front court depth often and say, it's nice to have a few extra 7-footers around, but I mean,
Stony Brook had 2 of them.
Yeah, Stony Brook. Well, and that was kind of part of the night tonight. It wasn't one of those games, and maybe it was kind of lead you to some of these Big Ten games where they have the low post scoring threat to really, that Nebraska would have, I should say, to kind of counteract the front court that Stony Brook had, or that Purdue's going to have, or, some of these bigger teams in the Big Ten. So they kind of had to find different ways to get in rhythm. I think there's going to be certain games where you kind of do the traditional, okay, you're not getting buckets, let's try to get an easy one down low with one of our bigger guys. That might be a little bit more difficult to do this year. And as you mentioned, I mean, as much depth as they have down there, and as much bodies as they can throw out, if Joe kind of develops into more of a regular rotation player, and I don't know if you expect that, but it's another big man you can point to. Blaze Cada, obviously, we're waiting on his return, but there's nobody that can replace Rink Mass in that front court without taking quite a big hit. Already, you see it through 4 games, how important, how crucial he's going to be, because the other guys, and I say this with all due respect, maybe it's just where they are, or maybe it's just their role. It's just that they're kind of the role players within that front court. Josiah Alec, you mentioned it, didn't get a point tonight, and I'm fine with it. He can do. I mean, he might have led Nebraska on body on the floor for a big man. That's quite impressive. But that's, his game's not necessarily going to be to get 12, 14 points a night, as you're going to expect from Rink Moss. Blaze Cada, I don't think you're going to expect it if he goes in there. So, as deep as it is, and there could be, you maybe can take some injuries here and there. Probably better prepared for that than next year. That is an important thing to kind of look at as we move on. And, obviously he already got attacked randomly in Lincoln. So that's kind of an injury that he's been able to overcome and already help with. Who knows? Maybe masked is better, but maybe he'll be even better and feel more regular when he's able to kind of shed that. So we'll kind of see there. Overall, though, it was... it's interesting because Nebraska, we know, and we've already kind of set the expectation, is going, a lot of it's going to depend on if their 3 is going down. And I thought it was pretty impressive tonight. Their 3 wasn't going down. They were 3 of 17 to start the game in the first half, which means they finished 8 of 26. So what, 5 of 9 in the second half, which is really good. But it made them kind of adjust and accept that, hey, the 3s aren't falling. We got to find kind of different ways to score here in the second half. One of which included an alley-oop from an an inbounds pass from underneath to Keisei Tamanaga. Did not have that on your bingo card going into the season, much less the game.
Probably didn't have 0 for 3 on the free throw line either on your bingo card.
He missed his, he had 2 and 1 opportunities tonight. Might have been 3 if he got to the line 3 times. But that was surprising to see him. I mean, he was close to a 90% 3-point shooter last year, or free throw shooter last year. Yeah. And so, maybe still coming back. It's a little bit odd to see. Nebraska overall from the free throw line, by the way, this was one part of their game that wasn't great tonight. 10 of 17 from the floor, 59%. Gary, as good a game as he had, 19 points on 11 shots, 1 of 4 from the free throw line. You mentioned Tamanaga, 0 for 3. And those are the guys that were really dragging him back, because the other guys were kind of making their free throws. And I suppose you can live with that, Gary. That's not necessarily his... It's not, you expect him to do better, I guess, as the season goes along. Both those kind of guys kind of fighting back from injuries. You usually would think the free throw line would be somewhere you can go to kind of get yourself going. But
It's apparently the wing on the three. That's the way to do it. Just pull up and come back down the court 2 times and just drain them. But yeah, I mean, the free throws, they're going to be a stickler for Nebraska, I think, going forward. That's just a number that, unfortunately, I know it's small sample size, but just kind of looking at the guys, I don't expect Casey to continue to struggle. But for the most part, looking at a lot of these guys and how they've shot it in the past, that is one thing to worry about, especially when we get into that Big Ten play. I know a lot of the things in these earlier games is, man, we should be up by more, especially in the first half. You're kind of seeing that. I know if anyone listening's on that Husker Reddit, that was a big part of the discussion. And you expand that lead by making your free throws. Under 60%, that's not going to cut it. That didn't cut it for me, playing basketball at C2 level. So that's just something that can continue to work on. I don't think it's going to be, hovering around that low, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And Keisei Tamanaga, I will say, it looked like he was cramping up again. He was on the sideline and stretching it out a lot. So he's still, I feel like, working into shape. And that could be a lot of it. Gary, the same thing. Because when you're on the free throw line and your legs not underneath you, that's where your misses come from. So it could be a thing where, again, small sample size, maybe you don't want to panic on it too much. Guys coming off injuries, coming off rotations, getting into that game shape. So hopefully it continues to round out to a higher number. But I'm not necessarily expecting a huge improvement from last season, but it just needs to be good enough to where when we get to those Big Ten teams, you just can't be losing games because of free throws. And that, unfortunately, was a problem for Nebraska, especially early on in the season before the injuries. They had a few where, free throws, you're just not giving yourself a chance when you're shooting that low of a number.
Yeah. It'll be something to track because it was a problem last year. This is the Hoops Postgame Show here at 93.7 Ticket. Once again, Nebraska with a 21-point win tonight, 84-63 over the Stony Brook Seawolves, which, by the way, their logo, the Seawolves, all that put together, that looks like a perfect start your team on NCAA basketball.
It looks like a default.
Yeah, it looks like a default logo, but they're working with what they got. But we invite you guys to tune in, give us your initial thoughts from tonight. And also joining the conversation, Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685. We got a few thoughts. Rick from Wahoo says a nice win for the men's team. Great start at 4-0. And 0099 says Bryce Williams can be that dude. I think Bryce Williams probably had his best game of the season so far. 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 of those being offensive rebounds. Very efficient night. 6 of 9 overall, 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, and 3 of 4 from the free throw line. And I think part of it too is just kind of, he's a very kind of flow of the game type of guy. I mean, he had some stretches where he was kind of attacking. He kind of felt like he was hot and was ready to go. And I think as the season develops and these guys kind of break down into their roles, he is a guy that I expect to continue to rise and be a guy that by the end of the season, as they say, could be that dude.
I mean, he's just a tough matchup. He's kind of proven it. The numbers don't lie. You go 6 of 9, you go 2 from 3 from the 3-point line, you get to the free throw line, you're knocking them down there, you're grabbing 9 rebounds, you're dishing it out, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. Again, that was unfortunately just kind of a team-wide thing here. You go, across the starting lineup, 2 for Mass, 3 for Lawrence, 2 for Tamanaga, 3 for Williams. But, again, just across the board, I think that's, he does have that potential because he's got a little bit of everything in his bag. He's got a few areas of the court where he can really take over if you're not going to respect him there. If he's got a size advantage on you, he's shown it. He can go inside, pretty good driving ability as well if he's got to take you off the dribble. But from the outside as well, he's knocking him down. I'm curious to see, if that number can continue to hang around where it's at right now. But yeah, he can definitely be that guy. And, we kind of talked about at the beginning, it's up for grabs a little bit. You expect Tamanaga to continue his high scoring effort. Mass, we kind of know what we're getting there, and a solid all around player. But Williams, I mean, as the season continues to unravel and he can continue being that guy with 17 points on really high efficiency, you're feeling pretty good about the matchups you can have with him out there. And again, you just got a wide rotation of guards you can throw on there as well. So Bryce Williams, yeah, definitely a great game from him. Excited to see how it continues forward. And these guys will get tested, right? We talked about how last season started, very aggressive schedule kind of early on. This season, a little nicer, right? You're slowly building up. You don't want to look past Oregon State, but again, you're slowly building up to Creighton. And these guys are getting tested early by some of these weaker teams, and they're building up, and they're sitting here 4-0. So they're taking care of the job. not always been pretty. You know, we've had some halves where you think a little sloppy, the turnovers, you hope to clean that up, free throws, small things like that you can nitpick at. But we are sitting here at 4-0. They're doing what they need to do, and we're still kind of getting the feel for all these players, how they're going to fit within this rotation. But you definitely know you got a guy in Williams, you got a guy in Tamanaga, you got a guy in Mast, and obviously Lawrence, Alec, we know what kind of players they are. And it's just going to be looking at the bench, you know, we talked about no Romello Jr. yet. Sam Hoiberg, CJ Wilcher, it's just a lot of depth on there. And we'll be curious to see how these minutes get distributed out. You know, looking at Sam Hoiberg, he's the guy where his minutes I'm really curious about. I do wonder if he's going to be just kind of that defensive stalwart for you. Because right now we're seeing it where some of these other guards, you know, offensively, they might have a little more to bring, but defensively, you kind of see it with Sam Hoiberg. He's all over the place. So you see, you just got different styles of guards you can throw in here. And I hope as the season grows, especially when you're playing those better teams or on paper, you know, they're going to be quote unquote better. The matchups and what you can throw at them and what we saw with Williams, what we're seeing with Mast, you kind of hope that's the key to it. You know, we have enough different things that we can throw at you to keep you consistently guessing. So even on paper, if you're better, you're going to have a tough time figuring this team out, you know, just on a night in, night out basis, because we can throw different lineups at you left and right.
Well, and I think Hoiberg too is kind of elevated himself from kind of that walk on and, you know, kind of, you know, that
100%.
You know, obviously he did that last year, but I think there's still always going to be that little kind of stigma because he's not as big. He doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't help when you're that short.
Yeah, he's not a big guy. So I think there's naturally always going to be that, well, he might be the first guy to take out of the minute rotation if you get there. But I'm not sure if that's the case because he is a guy, you know, you could just kind of see it. He's just got a high basketball IQ. A few times in the first half, I noted it. When a guy was struggling, he couldn't find somebody to get open, he was cutting, and they found him. You know, it sometimes isn't always leading to points or stats type of thing. I did the same thing when he was penetrating and kicking out to open threes. Nebraska was 3 of 17 for threes, so they didn't hit them, but they're basically what should be or could be assists. You know, most part of the season. So Hoiberg continues to impress me. And as far as that bench kind of model that we're talking about, with all these different guys fighting to get in that starting lineup. So far, it's been good to be coming off the bench because 3 out of the 4 leading scorers through 4 games have been off the bench. As it happened again tonight with Gary, who I think is eventually will be in the starting lineup. It happened the other night with Wilcher, who was at one time in the starting lineup, moved to the bench and then led. And then, of course, in the first game with Sam Hoiberg when he led in scoring off the bench. Let's go to some of the text line response again. Ohio Husker says, "Hey fellas, great game tonight. My son and I are on the way home from the arena. He wants to know where Stony Brook is located. They are located in Stony Brook, New York. So a little bit of a trip from the East Coast from the Seawolves tonight." Dave Braska says Juwan Gary is the man. So a little bit of an argument there from Bryce Williams being the dude. Well, Bryce Williams can be the dude. Juwan Gary can be the man. 8180 says, "Love having a post-game show to listen to on the drive home. Also, Tamanaga still isn't a 1. Thanks, guys. Keep it up." We're going to continue having that argument. And to stand up for Austin, who is not here tonight, he's got the day off. And, you know, Strick will say the same thing. I think he's not necessarily a natural one. He kind of does it on the 3-3 teams.
Yeah.
And so I understand where he's coming from, the texter, in saying that. But I think, as Strick has said, it's probably best for him to get some minutes there just heading to the NBA level, because that's where he would have to kind of develop his game to at least be able to do that quite often in the NBA. He's just a very small 2 for the NBA.
I just really, to me, that's always like, unless the team's like pressing you all the time, it's kind of an exhausting little bit of conversation. Like, yes, it is. Yeah. It is a conversation, but we talk about all the time how positionless is basketball. You go to the NBA, you watch Nikola Jokic bringing the ball up and down the court. He's obviously not the point guard, but you're just going to play to your strengths. If you have something going for you, yeah, you might be Casey Tamanaga bringing the ball up the court. You know, to me, it really doesn't matter that much. If you're in a situation where you need those ball handlers, that's what you're looking for. But for the most part, you get into your half court set. It's not like we have a team where it's really just sticking, running through the point guard like you would see with Chris Paul. So it's a little bit of, we can dive into it. But for the most part, like, I'm not really worried about who's going to be the true one on the team. It's a game today where it's so positionless, especially on a team like Nebraska, where you got multiple guys sitting out at the 3-point line, multiple guys cutting in. You know, we talked about Sam Hoiberg, give him credit for being a shorter guy. great finisher. When he goes to the rim, you got to respect it when he's up there because he's got some nice moves. Same thing with Casey Tamanaga. It's one of those things where I think you're just going to look for the best ball handler, and you get in those situations where you got to break a press. You probably won't see Tamanaga being the guy to bring it out. But for the most part, it would be good to get him some reps there because in the NBA, you get the ball and you go. It doesn't really matter who you are unless you're Dwight Howard out there. But for the most part, you just get the ball and go and you run the offense and you got to take those transition points. So it would be smart to kind of get him some reps there so he can get that up tempo if that's the way we want to play it. If shots are falling, you can push the pace. It's not going to hurt to put him up there. But how much it really matters, I don't know if it's that big of a deal on the roster,
Well, it's good to see it not forced necessarily, too,
exactly.
Because there were times when Bryce McGowens was playing here where it was like you could see they were doing things to allow him to prepare for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't necessarily mean the best thing for the Nebraska current team. And that's kind of the same thing. If you forced him to be the guy that brings it up, you might have more turnovers than you would with your best ball handlers out there. It's just a different era. It's not the ones aren't ball dominant like they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are, it's kind of as weird as it is, it's an outlier to what it, as opposed to what it used to be. He's never going to be a ball pounding number one in any case.
Exactly.
Because, he's too much of a threat from the three that you're worried about his shot the whole time. So, yeah, probably an over-exhausted conversation, but I appreciate the text because we'll have it every post-game show.
Absolutely.
Because there is that argument there. Fred Knott Hoiberg says when everyone else was warming up shooting from the outside after the half, Gary was at the line working on free throws. That's interesting. I'd have to check and see if his missed free throws were in the first half because I had the first half. I screenshotted basically what was going on in the first half. There it is. Yeah, well, it was 0 for 2 in the first half.
Okay.
So he did hit 1 of 2 in the second half. So it helped. That's why he made that free throw in the second half. But that is interesting. Gary, too, he doesn't have like the purest stroke, I suppose, but it's fine. He hit 2 big threes today. Again, his run, and Stony Brook, give him credit because they're not, they've got a team that basically, if they're kind of all hitting and doing well, they can kind of give you a stare, but they don't, they're not a team that's ready to probably take down a Nebraska consistently. Give them credit because every time Nebraska kind of punched and kind of had a big play where the arena was kind of getting excited and they, maybe their lead jumped from 7 to 9 or 7 to 10, they'd always be able to fight back. Now they eventually just seemingly run out of gas. Maybe Nebraska's defense is another game where the defense really stepped it up and toward, the second half of the second half or the fourth quarter, if you want to go football terms, really shut out the opponent. So maybe there's something to that too. I think they probably kind of ran out of gas, but give us credit to Stony Brook because I think they gave Nebraska maybe more of a test than they thought they were going to tonight. Heck, what was the kid that shot Frey? Fry was a good shooter and he hit one from the logo, which if you would have expected somebody to hit one for the logo tonight, it might have been Tamanaga, but that was interesting. But Nebraska was always able to bounce back. But there was 2 stretches that I kind of remember that really made a difference in this game. And one was in the first half where Nebraska took the initial kind of 8-9 point lead, whatever it was, when Tamanaga scored 8 in a row and had a chance for it to be 9, but he missed his free throw. And then this second half when Juwan Gary kind of just went off. I think he had 2 threes in a made bucket there, and actually rebounding a Tamanaga missed free throw. Sorry, Tamanaga, your free throws were important tonight in kind of the flow of the game. But those were kind of the 2 key stretches before kind of the end stretch to me, where Nebraska really started separating and Stony Brook just couldn't get a bucket. Mississippi Mud Dog chimes in, says, I want to see Alec put someone in a headlock like Draymond this year. He is our Draymond. I don't know if he's... I
want him on the court still, so let's refrain from the headlock.
Might get 5-game suspension is the latest from that, and I don't know if that's necessarily the key. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with this team, though. They got some scrappy guys out there.
Oh, yeah, and that's one thing you do love about this Nebraska basketball team is defensively, I think you're definitely right. Gary has that nice run in the second half. You start seeing Fry really just have some crazy shots that, they gave Stony Brook a little bit of momentum. At one point, you're looking at the game, and I think it was 49-56, and you're like, oh, man, this is getting close here. Fry really made a huge push. Despite Gary making the threes, here they come. But nonetheless, as it continues to play out, I do think they just got worn out. You see Nebraska, even when other teams are making shots, they do close out really hard. I'm curious to see what it looks like when they they deal with that really big inside presence. A team like Purdue that's going to just consistently run it through the 5, because right now we have plenty of guards with fresh legs that we can throw out there. We can hound you all game. On the inside, we talked about it. Injuries, obviously, get some guys back. That'll help out a lot. But, if we have games where Mass is getting in trouble in foul territory, it's going to be tough to kind of slow those teams down. But as it's going right now, sitting here 4-0, the defensive effort's been great. You can argue that last game, without that 8-minute just keeping them absolute dry, that's a game you could potentially lose, which we've seen in the past with this Fred Hoiberg team. But for 8 minutes, shots weren't falling, and they had to rely on their defense. And, I talked to, again, getting the opportunity to talk to Sam Hoiberg, Jeff Grace III on Walk On Weekly. They said that wasn't even a conversation in the huddles or anything. They just kind of know when they're not making shots, that's what needs to be done. They need to take extra focus on locking on the defensive end of the court. Shots just aren't falling your way. And it's just been impressive. I think last game, you look at the defense as a huge reason they won. This game, defense is a huge reason why you just kind of exhausted them out. They go for a run, but that airtight defense was still there. There's only so many, threes you can shoot from the Nebraska S before you start missing. So, it's times like that, you make those big shots, but you don't get down on yourself. So you continue to close out hard. Even when Fry was having that nice run there, they're still closing out really hard, keeping good composure, not letting an easy blow by. Because you'll see that too. A guy gets hot, you want to start chasing around all over the court, then he's killing you inside, and you're giving your centers all sorts of trouble. They're kicking out. That's how the momentum starts to build. It goes from the 3 to you getting blown off the dribble because you're over pursuing it. But this team, fundamentally, they seem really locked in on that side of the court. You don't see him make a whole ton of mistakes. You don't see guys getting into foul trouble left and right. They just play really sound basketball at that end of the court. And as this season continues, that's a real strength for Nebraska. If they really take pride in that, which they did last season through injuries and, just kind of had to lean in that way because you didn't have it on paper offensively, that's going to be a big factor for Nebraska. If they want to really make a run this year in the Big Ten, when it gets to the Big Ten tournament time, you want to have a good seed. There's going to be games where you're leaning on your defense because obviously if you're going to be a 3-point shooting team, you've seen those, even the Warriors at the greatest peaks, a bad shooting night's going to lose you games if that's what your offense is predicated around. So to me, that's been, one of the greater signs of this team is that the defense hasn't seemed to take it a step back.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're still doing that doubling down on the post that we saw so much last year. And Stony Brook tried to figure it out, but and at times got some open shots out of it. But other times it kind of bothered him. This is the Hoops Post Game Show brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. I'm Jake Bachman. He is Harrison Arns. We really appreciate you guys chiming in. We've had a good conversation with you on the Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685. Unfortunately, we do have to take breaks, so we will go ahead and take a break, pay off a little bit of our bills, and get some of our sponsors commercials in. But we'll be right back after this. Once again, we are celebrating the 4th victory for Nebraska Hoops with an 84-63 victory over Stony Brook tonight. We will be right back after this break.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
Juice Stop in Lincoln reminds us that we all benefit from the security a strong military offers our country. Show our troops your appreciation. Send a soldiery care package to let them know they are not forgotten, and to make their time away from home a little more pleasant. Search online for information on how you can get involved or call your local veterans organization. This message comes to you from Juice Stop in Lincoln. That's Juice Stop in Lincoln. They are wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking all of them for their triumphs and for all their sacrifices.
Hello, this is Mary Pat Waite. I've had the privilege of working with Lincoln families as their realtor for more than 31 years, and I'm so proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your transaction is unique in its own way. My experience allows me to bring you trusted care and a really great outcome. My NP Dodge family shares the same client focus.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Experience flexibility like never before with Ace Rent-to-Own. Whether you're decorating a new home or upgrading your electronics, they provide easy payment plan options that suit your budget. No credit checks, no hefty interest rates, just straightforward renting solutions designed with you in mind. Find great options to make a beautifully furnished space or surround yourself with the latest gadgets. With Ace Rent-to-Own, it's all within your grasp. Visit acerentoown.com and bring home more than just a product. Bring home a lifestyle.
The Southern Pecan Cake from Beatrice Bakery. They don't just let you call anything Southern, especially when it's baked right here in Nebraska. There are standards you have to meet, like a rich, decadent, moist caramel cake? Check. Bursting with too many large pecans to count? Check. Big enough to share with the whole group? Check. But delicious enough that you won't want to share? A big check on that one. The Southern Pecan Cake, the newest cake to the Beatrice Bakery lineup. Try it for yourself at Beatrice Bakery. Online at BeatriceBakery.com. Welcome to our world of yum.
Are you tired of living in pain? It's time to take control. At Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, we're your one-stop shop for expert care in Lincoln. From broken bones to complex reconstruction, our skilled team will help you get back on track. Visit prairieortho.com today and discover why we're the trusted choice for thousands of patients. Don't let pain hold you back. Take the first step towards a better, pain-free life with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, where healing begins. Call 402-489-4700.
This is Bud Seinhorst, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour, as we discuss local business and highlight those who are thriving in the Lincoln area. It's the LIBA Business Hour, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Back here on the Hoops Postgame Show, thanks for joining us. It is sponsored by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. We're celebrating a fourth Husker victory tonight as they stand undefeated 4-0. With an 84-63 victory over the Stony Brook Seawolves. Huskers led in scoring tonight by Juwan Gary in his season debut. And again, apologize to Juwan Gary a little bit because when Tamanaga made his season debut, I was like, it's the tie, this is Tamanaga town and everything. And Gary makes his debut and probably plays even better, I suppose, than Tamanaga has in either game. And I haven't made quite as big a deal out of it. And I think that that's somewhat fair, given Tamanaga's star and kind of where he is, and we understand the threat he can be shooting the ball. But in a similar way, Juwan Gary could be argued as maybe, I wouldn't say just as important as Tamanaga, but maybe that next guy. We talk about who's going to kind of lead the team in scoring, and Gary certainly doesn't have to be a scorer, but he can be. And when we talk about consistency and expecting Rink Mass as we open up the show to say, man, he's going to be consistent. He's going to be one of those guys night in and night out. I think you got to say the same thing with Juwan Gary. A lot last year, it was kind of like those in-between hustle points type of thing. But again, if his 3-point is falling like it was tonight, that can add quite a dimension to his game. It'd be weird. It's kind of hard to say again because he's kind of a hustle, kind of makes that the play that somebody else wouldn't make. So I wouldn't again call him a 3-level scorer too efficiently, but he is a 3-level scorer in general. So I mean, he can score from any time on the floor. Again, I don't think that's necessarily going to be his role night in and night out. But he did grind it out, got 19 points on 11 shots tonight. And again, if that three-pointer is falling, he's about as dangerous as anybody on the court.
Yeah, and to be fair, if you're a efficient, consistent 3-point scorer in Division I Power 5 basketball, you're probably pretty high NBA draft pick as well. So there's not a whole lot of guys out there that are going to do it night in, night out basis. But yeah, he's definitely got a lot of that part of his game. And I'll just be curious to see, if this consistently beats the trend for him. Because CJ Wilcher, we talked about it, a little bit of the same thing. He can score at multiple levels. If you can get that 3-point shot start dropping for him. Went 0 for 2 tonight. You hope for that number to hopefully tick up. Obviously on the team, they shot about 31%. So, it's not like it's a horrible number or anything, but definitely some guys that they're going to kind of ebb and flow with that 3-point shot. Gary's going to be a lot of what CJ Wilcher's kind of got his own offense built around. If that 3-point shot starts falling, you can really start doing a lot of damage inside. Gary, a little more so inside. He's just got a kind of, seems like a plethora of moves he can use. Good finisher around the rim. The free throws, we'll hope that, again, we talked about that before. Just overall as a team, I don't think anyone's playing necessarily up to their standard other than a select few. But yeah, he's going to have that opportunity to be that 3-way scorer. How consistent isn't, we don't really know as of now, but that's the beauty of being a 3.3 level scorer is you can go to different parts of your game, try to figure it out when that shot isn't falling. And that is one of the things with this Nebraska team where it is good to see 84 points on a night where you shoot, about 30% on your threes. I think it's going to be, what does Nebraska do when the 3-point shot isn't falling against a quality opponent that can really defend you inside? So when that 3-point shot isn't falling, that's, to me, that's going to be my biggest fear heading into these tougher games is when do you do when the 3-point shot isn't falling, when that's what your offense is predicated by. That's where you're going to need the guys like you're going to need Gary. You're going to need CJ Wilcher, Hoiberg on defense, obviously. And you just kind of hope for Tamanaga to do enough inside as well. Again, you look at his stats for Keisei Tamanaga, 7 for 11, but 4 of those misses, all 4 3-point shots. So he was 100% shooting inside the 3-point line. So he's another guy where you don't really look at him, as a two level scorer, you just see 3-point shot, but he'll cut you up inside the same way. And he's really good around finishing around the rim. I want to see what that looks like when you are playing those trees, when you're playing against the Purdue's. They got 7-footers, but we talked about, Stony Brook had a couple of those 7-footers and it was sluggish in the first half. And I think that was a big part of it. The threes aren't falling. Inside, you're trying to figure out ways to work past those 7-footers. And they did kind of figure out that recipe towards the end there. It helps when you start making your threes. That's, kind of what we're talking about when Gary starts popping off those threes, stretching that defense out. And pretty soon you really start kind of stretching out that lead. They play a little faster, leads to turnovers, fast break points. But they still really haven't had that challenge where it's going to have to come consistently inside or just hope to make, maybe at 30% of your threes. That to me is going to be the challenge for this Nebraska basketball team.
Yeah, it will. And like you said, it's pretty common for a lot of teams. Nebraska for a long time. This is finally a roster, I think, that Fred Hoiberg kind of envisioned bringing in where you had, 5 guys out on the court that could threaten from beyond the arc. And if not, here and there, you can spot play guys or play even, fully play a guy here and there down low. That isn't going to be that case necessarily, but for the most part, everybody can shoot. But you're not guaranteed to be hitting them, night in, night out. There was once a time when a lot of basketball critics would say a primarily jump shooting team would never win a championship because it's just not consistent enough night to night. Now the Splash Brothers kind of threw that away and changed basketball as we knew it. But there was kind of a reason for that thought process. So there's going to be nights where Nebraska isn't shooting well, and thank God for him tonight that Stony Brook was also 3 of 17 from beyond the arc in the first half. That being said, I think that, some of these games, it's not just, yes, you're beating lower level opponents or whatever, but, it's nice not to just kind of run away with some of these games. It's good to get some of a test and a different look. And tonight's look, I think, was that they were struggling from beyond the arc. They made the adjustment at half. They only took 9 threes in the second half. And despite that, ended up scoring 48 points in the second half, as opposed to 36 in the first half when they were launching threes left and right. So they did kind of made the adjustment there. Again, a lot of that was Juwan Gary and Bryce Williams kind of getting into their own game. It's also worthy of noting that this team, again, was passing the ball well. 19 assists on 33 made shots. They've been double digits and close to that 15 to 19 mark game in and game out. Again, competition steps up. That might be a little bit more difficult, but you love to see that. And that's part of the vision as well, is moving the ball around and finding the open man. So I think tonight you kind of got the test of what if our threes aren't falling. I think against Ryder, you kind of got the test of what if our offense isn't really going in general. And I think from 4 games, there's something to be said about these guys learning to play together in chemistry. But there is something to be said also about a little bit of the lower level of of competition that they're playing. And so I think it's kind of a tell that there are going to be nights when they have to go back and rely on that defense or find different ways to score other than just kind of launching up threes. There's going to also be nights where they're hitting everything, and launching up threes is the exact thing that they need to do. And I don't mind them kind of starting with that because they've got enough guys to get it done. But I think that was a bit of the story tonight, is to be able to overcome a bad 3-point shooting night and turn it into a not so bad 3-point shooting night. I mean, you want to shoot better than 31% from beyond the arc, but that's not going to drag your totals down too much for the season.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned those assists, because you look at Stony Brook's assist numbers, they only 6 on the night. That again really speaks to Nebraska's defense. There wasn't a whole lot of easy passes that Stony Brook can make for a quick, easy basket. We'll see what it looks like when we have some more skilled players, more skilled competition. But for the most part, those easy assists just weren't there for him. They did have 10 steals, so again, turnover is a little bit of a thing to watch for. Again, 14 too many, but 19 for Nebraska, and to me, that's, with the way this offense is running and flowing, how they like to get to their shots, this feels like a number that's going to stay consistently pretty high for this team. And that, it's a good sign, especially playing this, collegiate level basketball. When you get to March Madness, you see a lot of those teams that can consistently push past the bracket. They have good assist totals, and they got a bunch of guys that play that selfless basketball. You think about, what Kansas is typically, a lot of that's team chemistry as well, which is great to have guys like Tamanaga come back, CJ Wilcher, but you're going to need that. You can't just walk into games with K-State Tamanaga's our guy. If he drops, if he doesn't drop 30 plus points, we're in trouble. This few games now where he hasn't had to necessarily light up the stat sheet, but the ball is moving around enough, giving everyone a chance to be able to find that hot hand. There's so many times where in years past, again, you kind of look at Bryce McGowan's, obviously they're trying to set him up for the NBA, but that offense would get stagnant. The other guys would get touches on the ball. They're cold. And the whole team was shooting cold if McGowan was shooting cold, because it wouldn't get to the other guys' hands as often until he did get cold. So it just kind of makes you feel good about the way the ball's moving, and it's going to find the hot hand. I'm not saying it's good that the ball's, moving and it's not always sticking in K-State Tamanaga's hand. If he's on fire, we'll know it, because the ball's moving around enough for it to find him eventually. And then the way the offense is kind of set up, it'll continue to just feed him over and over on those dribble handoffs and set up what can be a really fun offense, like you said, if the threes are falling.
Lots to still to break down. We've got to go to break once again. This is the Hoops Post Game, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. He is Harrison Arns. I am Jake Bakoven. Still, again, more to talk about. We haven't mentioned Jamarcus Lawrence tonight, who played probably his best game at the one. We'll go back to that discussion.
Shout out the texter.
Yep. And also, let's talk a little bit about who lost some minutes in the rotation tonight. It might not be in totality, but at least for tonight, with Juwan Gary back in the rotation, who kind of lost those minutes. Again, we'll let you know coming up next here on the Hoops Post Game Show on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. Kendall Warnock with A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. If you're looking for an automotive repair facility you can genuinely trust, we would be grateful for the opportunity to earn your business repairing your vehicle. We have ASE master technicians and qualified to work on a variety of vehicles, from Hondas to Porsches, Jaguars to Toyotas, and Chevrolets to Fords. We pride ourselves on customer service and relationships, and we would be grateful for the opportunity to serve you. Give us a call at 402-477-4660. A1 Automotive. Always honest answers.
Get rid of pesky critters once and for all with Bats to Rats. Their expert team is here to help you reclaim your home. No more sleepless nights caused by crawling critters or flapping wings. Bats to Rats ensures a safe environment for every family member. Check the website at batstoRats.com for amazing offers, and if you mention this ad, you'll receive $10 off your initial inspection cost. Don't allow uninvited guests to take over your home. Trust Bats to Rats for a peaceful and rodent-free living space.
In dealing with the high interest rates, it's very important that you get as much bang for the buck. And that's what our Remington Homes is all about.
Bob Benish of Aspen Builders, talking about Remington Homes, which makes the home building process easier and more affordable.
People really enjoy being able to go to our website, which is remingtonlincoln.com, pick a plan, pick a price point, go through and build it yourself. You have a lot of options, whether you want granite, whether you want painted trim or other upgrades. Those are all options with our Remington Homes. If you're looking for more affordability and streamlined, you're probably better off with a Remington Home. Our goal there is to give you a good product for the right price in budget.
Home building is easier with a Remington home from Aspen Builders at 423-6811. Online at remingtonlincoln.com. remingtonlincoln.com.
Ironhide Construction is hiring. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals who are team players. Ironhide Construction has openings for an experienced project manager, estimator, apprentice, skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
Are you tired of living in pain? It's time to take control. At Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, we're your one-stop shop for expert care in Lincoln. From broken bones to complex reconstruction, our skilled team will help you get back on track. Visit prairieortho.com today and discover why we're the trusted choice for thousands of patients. Don't let pain hold you back. Take the first step towards a better pain-free life with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, where healing begins. Call 402-489-4700.
Belmont Chiropractic and Novotny Nutrition and Wellness specialize in getting rid of people's pain quickly and permanently. For 31 years, they've been extremely successful with advanced techniques in pain relief using spinal adjustments and decompression, detoxification, diet and lifestyle modification, and more. They are fully equipped to handle the most seasonal athlete, weekend warrior, car accidents, strains, sprains, and more. Is there anywhere you're experiencing pain on your body, or are you fighting decreased energy and depression? Consult Belmont Chiropractic and Novotny Nutrition and Wellness first at 402-476-8619.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest, quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Wrapping up things here on the Hoops Postgame Show on another victorious night. Nebraska wins 84-63 over Stony Brook to improve to 4-0. I'm Jake Bachman. He is Harrison Arns, and this is brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Shout out to them again for another year of sponsoring the Hoops Postgame Show. We will be with you, and you need to tune into us after every Hoops Postgame, after every Hoops game this year.
Absolutely,
including Oregon State, which I know that's in the middle of the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. But
is that the debut of Eric Strickland?
It should be the debut of Eric Strickland, who, once again, shout out to him. BTN Plus tonight did an excellent job on the broadcast. Last thing I wanted to hit to real quick, I mentioned it going into break. Jamarcus Lawrence, I thought, had a pretty productive night tonight. 8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. So going to need to clean that up a little bit. 4 of 8 from the field, 0 of 2 from beyond the arc. Still not hitting that. And shout out to Strick again, who was kind of saying, as Strick liked to say, the middies. He got got to get to his mid-range shot until that 3-point shot starts falling, because he has struggled out of the gate from there. Also made a fast break dunk there toward the end to kind of help out his numbers. But I thought that he looks like he's growing more and more comfortable in that starting lineup, being the guy that the primary ball handler.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll come with time. Again, you talked about the turnovers a little bit, especially with the offense we run. I keep comparing it. I hate doing that. I watch a lot of NBA, so you have to forgive me. But you look at the Warriors, right? It's not the same offense, but it's a lot of it's dribble handoffs to get into the 3-point shot. The Warriors typically lead the NBA in turnovers. So that's just one of those things where it is one of those offenses where it is going to lead to more turnovers. You have to be mentally locked in when you're throwing the ball around that much. It's great for the assist numbers. Turnovers, you got to watch it on there. But I thought his role tonight, he seems definitely to be getting more comfortable. I think it's just going to continue to take time for this team to gel. Again, just referring those turnover numbers, that's a lot of it to me, is when you're going to run this type of offense, it's going to take time for those players to get comfortable in it. It's going to take time to dwindle those turnovers down and just not let it simply be a bane of your offense. And tonight, it wasn't like overly egregious, but you just always want to be on the winning end of that turnover margin. Watching Nebraska football, you know why that's important. But yeah, nonetheless, I think it's just going to take time. He had a game where looking like he's getting more comfortable in the role, and I'm just kind of excited to see what this continues to build up to.
I also mentioned we could update you on a minutes watch as Juwan Gary enters the conversation Gets 23 minutes off the bench. Of course, that's going to eat at some of the other minutes in the rotation. CJ Wilcher down a bit. He's been averaging around 20. He was in at 14 today. I'm not sure what everybody is averaging here. Boogie Coleman at 11. I think maybe we've seen a little bit more of him. Sam Hoiberg at 13, so probably partially eating at some of those minutes. But Eli Rice was really the big one to me, who had just 4 minutes tonight, kind of came in with the backups, did get a good block in there. But for now, and he's a young guy, so maybe that makes some sense. Also, we should be noted, we saw the tweet, kind of got excited today because Rock Lloyd tweeted out that Ramel was healthy and ready to go, and he didn't even get in as far as basically when you're entering the bench, and Kel Jacobson and Harry Burton, some of those guys got in. So that was also of note. I'm not sure. Maybe there'll be a question to Hoiberg that we can kind of find out what's going on there. Otherwise, we'll just ask the Lloyds.
I'll tell you what, we got Lloyds and Lincoln every Sunday from 11 to 12. So if you want the answer why Ramel Lloyd Jr. wasn't quite in the game, maybe we'll figure that out on Sunday.
Yeah.
Could be one of those things too. It's like, hey, we know you're healthy. You just got cleared for rehab, but let's really just take this thing slow, because he's one of those guys where he's got a lot of eligibility left. He hasn't seen the court. So for him, he's the guy who's been injured, setback, and it's kind of been that pattern for him, an unfortunate pattern. And you see that all the times when I can imagine Mel Lloyd Jr. is rushing to get back.
Yeah.
He's been itching to play D1 basketball since he
life.
got out of high school,
and
he hasn't been able to do it. And it's just been constant injury setbacks. So I'm sure it's a lot of him. I don't want to say rushing because I know he takes that very seriously, but I'm sure the staff wants to be really careful, knowing a guy with his injury history, that let's make sure that when you're playing, we're not holding our breath for something bad to happen. I think it was just more of just let's be safe on this. And against a Stony Brook team, maybe you don't have to, bring him out there yet, especially when you're talking about the rest of the rotation, of trying to figure out the minutes yet. It might have made sense for that game.
Also, a question off the text line. Dave Braska says, is Oregon State any good? Oregon State is 3-0. They've had a double overtime victory over Troy and an overtime victory over Appalachian State. So they've only played 3 games, but they've played maybe the amount of 4. So hopefully they're a little bit tired. As far as were they good last year? Absolutely not. They were one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. So it should be seen as a winnable game for Nebraska, and a bit of a disappointing loss if they end up losing. That will be the next game. If you still have your Peacock package that you paid for the Maryland game, you're in luck, because this game will be on Peacock, and you can watch it once again. Tip off for 3 p.m. So can kind of get you prime and ready. A whole Husker day on Saturday. Of course, Nebraska football doesn't kick off on NBC until that evening. So, but that'll be our next chance to talk with you. This will wrap up our post-game show here on 93.7 The Ticket. The Hoops post-game show, once again, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. I'm Jake Bachman. He is Harrison Arns. I was going to call you Austin Arns.
That happens a lot. I don't know if it's just me and Austin. I know we both coming in probably like $1.75, so that's a lot to do with it. But yeah, nonetheless, definitely stay tuned. We got the Doan Athlete Project up next. That's always a great one from 10 to 11 p.m.
Absolutely. Some more on its way from 93.7 The Ticket. Once again, the Hoops post-game show will be back with you every game following any game for Nebraska here. As Nebraska next game once again will be Oregon State on Saturday. So we will talk to you then. Stay tuned for more coming up here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
This is Bud Seinhorst, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour, as we discuss local business and highlight those who are thriving in